My mother-in-law secretly added alcohol to my drink at my wedding. I lost consciousness, the reception was ruined, and now she's trying to buy my forgiveness for $5,000. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah. I'm 27 years old. A week ago, I married my wonderful husband Ethan, who is 32. Our wedding was beautiful, like something out of a telenovela. We met 2 years ago at a local coffee shop. I used to go there all the time. Morning coffee was my salvation. It helped me wake up before work. One day, standing behind me in line, there was a tall guy with kind eyes. He seemed nice, but honestly, I didn't pay much attention to him back then. All I could think about was getting my latte as quickly as possible. Later that same week, I ran into him again. This time, we started talking while waiting for our drinks. We chatted about everything, our favorite books, weird childhood stories, even our shared love for that cozy little coffee shop. We laughed so much that, for the first time that day, I felt truly alive. Looking back now, I realize I jumped to conclusions at first. Maybe it was because I was too focused on my routine or because Ethan wasn't exactly my usual type. But that day, something changed. There was real kindness in him, warmth in his smile that I couldn't ignore. We exchanged numbers, and that same evening Ethan texted me, asking if I'd like to go out to dinner. We went to a small Italian restaurant on a quiet side street. The food was amazing, but the most important thing was the conversation. We talked for hours, and everything felt so easy and natural. It turned out we had a lot in common. A love for old movies, a secret passion for karaoke, even though neither of us can actually sing, and tacos. Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other more and more. We went hiking, explored museums, and even tried, unsuccessfully, to attend pottery classes. The more time I spent with Ethan, the clearer it became how special he was. He was funny, smart, supportive, and always knew how to make me laugh. Because of him, I became a better version of myself, while still feeling completely like myself when I was with him. Then, on the second anniversary of our relationship, Ethan proposed in the most incredible way. We went away for the weekend to a cozy cabin in the mountains. Snow was falling softly outside, and we were sitting close together by the fireplace when he got down on one knee and pulled out a ring. I don't even remember what he said, because all my attention was fixed on the love shining in his eyes. Of course, I said yes. When we returned from that trip, I enthusiastically began planning our wedding. But that was when everything started to take an unexpected turn. After our engagement, I met his mother, Linda, for the first time. She was 57 years old. She lived outside the city, so she hadn't had a chance to meet me earlier. At first, Linda was very kind to me. She said she was happy that her son was finally getting married. Ethan was her only child, and she mentioned that she had always wanted more children. So my arrival into the family felt significant to her, as if she had gained another child. She even hugged me warmly and said she couldn't wait for us to get to know each other better. But things changed very quickly. That weekend, she came to stay with us to help prepare for the wedding and spend time together. I was happy, thinking we would grow closer and maybe even become friends. But the longer she stayed, the more uncomfortable her behavior made me feel. The first passive-aggressive comment came at breakfast on Saturday. I had made my favorite pancakes, and while Ethan was drinking coffee outside, Linda looked at me with a smile and said, "Oh, I see you're not too worried about carbs, are you?" I laughed it off, telling myself it was just a random comment, but it still stung. Later that same day, as we were flipping through wedding dress magazines, Linda pointed at a model and said, "That dress is very beautiful, but it's made for a very specific body type. Not everyone can pull that off." She glanced at me while saying it. It felt like a subtle hint that, in her opinion, I wouldn't be able to wear something like that. I just nodded and tried to brush it off, but inside I felt uneasy. The comments continued. When we went out to look at decorations, she casually said, "You know, my friend's daughter lost 20 pounds before her wedding and looked absolutely stunning. Have you thought about doing that?" I was shocked and didn't know what to say. I mumbled something about being happy with my body, but I could feel her judgment for not trying to lose weight. The next morning, she was rummaging through my kitchen cabinets and said, "Oh, you have a lot of snacks. I try to keep healthier food at home. You don't want to gain weight before the wedding, right?" It was hard to believe she was still fixated on my weight, and it was starting to genuinely hurt. It felt like she was doing it on purpose, even though her face always wore a smile and her voice sounded friendly. The strangest part was that Linda never made these comments when Ethan was around. It was like she had a switch. Around her son, she was all charm and kindness. But the moment he left the room, the jabs began again. I felt like I was living in two different realities. In one, I was accepted and loved. In the other, I was constantly criticized and judged. At first, I decided not to tell Ethan anything. After all, she was his mother, and I didn't want to create tension, especially since we had just gotten engaged and were so happy. I kept telling myself it was something small that I could handle. Besides, I'm not skinny. I have curves, and I love my body. I worked for a long time to build my confidence. Linda's comments were more annoying than destructive. It felt like she was trying to poke holes in my self-esteem, but I wasn't going to let her succeed. However, Linda started coming over more and more often. It seemed like she was at our place every weekend, and it was starting to drive me crazy. I worked Monday through Friday, and weekends were the only time I had to prepare for the wedding. But wherever I looked, Linda was there, helping or just hovering around. It was hard to focus when she constantly inserted herself with comments and acted like she knew better. One weekend, she called and said she was coming over again. My heart sank. I desperately needed some time alone to plan the wedding without her interference. So I told her I would be busy and wouldn't be home. She asked what I would be doing, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out that I was going to look at wedding dresses. I guess I just wanted her to understand that I had serious plans. To my horror, she got very excited and said she wanted to come with me. I didn't know how to say no without sounding rude, so I reluctantly agreed. Soon enough, she was standing at my door with a wide smile, repeating how happy she was to help me find the perfect dress. I tried to smile back, but inside everything tightened. I already had a bad feeling about how awful this trip was going to be. We visited several bridal salons. From the moment we walked in, Linda switched into mom mode. She suggested dresses I didn't like and made comments about how certain styles wouldn't suit my figure. It was exhausting. I felt like I couldn't even breathe without feeling her judgment. When I tried on a dress I genuinely loved, she said. It's beautiful, but don't you think it's a bit tight around the waist? Maybe something looser would suit you better. I was so disappointed. I really liked that dress, but her words made me doubt myself. By the end of the day, I hadn't chosen anything and felt completely drained. Linda went home, and I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Over the next few days, she continued bothering me with messages, asking when I would go dress shopping again. Each time, I replied that I didn't know when I'd have time. I firmly decided that this time, I wouldn't tell her about my plans. But everything fell apart when Ethan told his mom that I was going to the dress shop the next day. She immediately called and asked what time she should come. Now I had to make a decision. Linda had made so many comments about my body that I was honestly scared to take her with me. I knew that if she came, the day would be ruined by her remarks and judgment. So I decided to make up an excuse. I told her that the bridal salon had rules. Only 2 people were allowed to come with the bride, and that my mom and my maid of honor were already going with me. Yes, I knew it was a very stupid lie, but in that moment, nothing better came to mind. Linda immediately said it was ridiculous and asked, "What kind of bridal salon only allows 2 people? That's absurd." I started stammering and said, "Yes, I know. It's strange, but that's what they told me." I was sweating, realizing how stupid my lie sounded. I quickly added that I had to go, and ended the call before she could ask more questions. As soon as I hung up, a wave of guilt hit me. I hated lying, especially to Ethan's mother. But I simply couldn't endure another day of her criticism. I decided to focus on the good and remind myself that this day was supposed to be joyful and exciting. My mom and my friend picked me up, and we went to the bridal salon. I tried to push away the guilt and enjoy the moment, and I managed to find a dress that I completely fell in love with. After that, Linda stopped calling, texting, and coming over to our house. She continued communicating with Ethan, which was a relief. At least there was no awkwardness between them. I sent her a photo of me in the dress, hoping to share the joy. She replied with just a thumbs-up emoji and nothing else. I didn't know how to interpret that, but I decided not to dwell on it. I had too much to do preparing for the wedding to waste energy on her reaction. As the wedding day approached, I was overwhelmed with tasks and didn't message Linda anymore. There was so much to handle, finalizing the guest list, confirming catering, overseeing the decor. And then, finally, the long-awaited day arrived. It exceeded all my expectations. The ceremony was beautiful, and I couldn't stop smiling as I walked down the aisle toward Ethan. The look on his face when he saw me in my dress was priceless. Going through all the stress was worth it just for that moment. We exchanged vows, swapped rings, and just like that, we became husband and wife. The reception started off wonderfully. We had an amazing venue. The weather was perfect. The food was delicious. And it seemed like all the guests were having a great time. I was thrilled with our first dance. Ethan and I had taken a few lessons, and we managed not to step on each other's feet even once. Everything felt like a fairy tale. I was on cloud 9. Everything went smoothly, until I decided to get myself a drink. I went to the bar to grab a glass of champagne. As I was waiting, I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. When I turned around, I saw Linda standing there with a tight smile on her face. She looked me up and down slowly, her eyes lingering on my dress. "Well," she said, "I see you went with something very form-fitting." I forced a polite smile and replied, "Yes, I did. I love it." She raised her eyebrows and took a sip of her drink. "I just hope you'll be comfortable sitting in it all evening. Weddings are long, you know." I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was my wedding day and nothing could ruin my mood. "I'm perfectly comfortable," I said calmly. Linda tilted her head slightly and leaned closer. "I was surprised you didn't invite me to the second dress fitting," she continued. "I thought maybe you didn't want my opinion." My stomach tightened. "That wasn't the case," I replied. "The salon had restrictions." She let out a short laugh. "Oh, please. I called the salon myself," she said casually. "They told me there are no such rules." I felt the blood rush to my face. "So," she went on, lowering her voice, "you lied to me." Before I could respond, she straightened up and smiled sweetly, as if nothing had happened. "But it's fine," she added. "Today is about you and Ethan. I wouldn't want to cause a scene." Her words sounded polite, but her tone made it clear. This wasn't over. She walked away, leaving me frozen in place, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe she had actually called the salon. The embarrassment and anxiety hit me all at once. I tried to calm myself and reminded myself that she hadn't confronted me in front of others. Still, the joy I had felt earlier started to fade. I went back to Ethan and tried to act normal, but I couldn't stop thinking about what Linda had said. Every time I saw her across the room, my chest tightened. Later in the evening, when the guests were mingling and laughing, I noticed Linda standing near a group of relatives. She was talking animatedly, occasionally glancing in my direction. Something told me she wasn't saying anything nice. A little while later, my cousin approached me with an awkward expression on her face. "I don't want to upset you," she said carefully, "but your mother-in-law has been making some comments." I felt my heart sink. "What kind of comments?" I asked. She hesitated before answering. "She's been telling people that you lied to her about the dress fitting and that you didn't want her involved because you're insecure about your weight." I was shocked. My hands started shaking. She also said, my cousin continued softly, that the dress is too tight and that it's not flattering. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to cry in the middle of my wedding reception. I thanked my cousin and took a deep breath, trying to pull myself together. That was the moment I realized Linda hadn't let it go at all. She had waited for the perfect time to embarrass me, when everyone was watching and celebrating. I looked around the room. People were smiling, dancing, enjoying themselves, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore. I needed to talk to Ethan. I found Ethan near the dance floor, laughing with his friends. For a brief second, I hesitated. I didn't want to ruin his mood on our wedding day. But the knot in my chest was too tight to ignore. I pulled him aside and asked if we could talk in private. The moment we were alone, I told him everything. I explained how his mother had criticized my body, how she had called the bridal salon to check if I was lying, and how she was now telling relatives that I was insecure and dishonest. At first, Ethan looked stunned. "She did what?" he asked, his smile fading. I nodded, my voice trembling as I spoke. "I didn't want to involve you before, because I didn't want to cause problems. But she's humiliating me at our own wedding." His expression changed from confusion to anger. I had never seen him look that upset before. "That's completely unacceptable," he said firmly. "I'm so sorry you had to deal with this alone." He wrapped his arms around me, and for the first time that evening, I felt like I could breathe again. Ethan told me to stay where I was while he went to talk to his mother. I watched him walk across the room toward Linda, my heart racing. They stepped aside and started talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see Linda's face clearly. At first, she looked confident, even amused. Then her smile disappeared. Ethan's posture was tense, his jaw clenched. He was speaking calmly, but with a seriousness that left no room for argument. Linda crossed her arms and shook her head, clearly trying to defend herself. At one point, she gestured toward me, her lips moving rapidly. Ethan interrupted her. I could tell by the way he raised his hand slightly and leaned forward that he wasn't letting her control the conversation. After a few minutes, Linda's face turned pale. She looked around, realizing that a few guests were starting to notice the confrontation. Finally, she nodded stiffly and said something short. Ethan turned and walked back toward me. "She's leaving," he said quietly. "I told her that if she can't respect my wife, she has no place at our wedding." I stared at him, stunned. "She's leaving?" I asked. He nodded. "Yes. I love my mom, but I love you more. And I won't allow anyone to hurt you, especially not today." Tears finally spilled down my cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief. Linda grabbed her coat and bag and headed toward the exit. She didn't look at me, not even once. The atmosphere slowly returned to normal. Music played, people danced, and laughter filled the room again. A few guests gave me sympathetic smiles, but no one asked questions. Ethan stayed by my side for the rest of the night. We danced, laughed, and focused on each other, blocking out everything else. By the end of the evening, the tension was gone. I felt safe, supported, and deeply loved. That night, as we lay in bed, I asked Ethan if he regretted asking his mother to leave. He shook his head without hesitation. "No," he said. "I should have set boundaries with her a long time ago." He kissed my forehead and added, "You're my family now, and I'll always choose you." In that moment, I knew I had married the right person.